Welcome back to Forgotten Hollywood. So, as you might hear, I have my tiny co-host with me. He is showing early signs of teething, and so he wants to be near Mama at all times. And he's not sleeping much, so if I want to get anything recorded, he's got to be here too. So if you hear baby sounds, that's why. The other day, I stumbled across a headline that made me do a double take. It was about Terminator 7. Terminator 7. Why? I seriously thought this had to be a fan thing, as many Hollywood rumors are, but the information about this film came from James Cameron. He seems convinced that a new reboot will work this time. Right? Because the last 3 reboots were so successful. If your goal is a trilogy, and you have already tried to restart the trilogy 3 times, you might want to change topics. Film studios, contrary to modern decision-making, are in the business to make money, and tend to try the path of least resistance. If something worked once, it will likely work again. This is a tried and true method for many things, and especially true in media. Even Walt Disney, known for hating sequels, would duplicate the framework of sequences in later films. The problem is excess. Disney may have been given a hard time for taking a dance sequence from Snow White and using it in Robin Hood, but until recently they didn't duplicate entire films. I once heard that the first film is an act of love and the sequel is motivated by profit. Aside from a few exceptions, that's very true. Often a sequel lacks the magic and spirit of the original film. This is also true for remakes. To date, I have only seen one remake I liked more than the original film, but that was primarily due to the age in which I watched them and the fact that the remake was a comedy and I found the original to be sad. If I tried to watch them back to back now, I would probably have a different take. The problem is, no matter how lackluster they are, die-hard fans will line up to buy tickets for the next installment of their favorite franchise. Or will they? Let's take a look at the numbers. I would like to make a note that inflation is not 100% accurate when comparing older films to modern ones. The further back you go, the less movie tickets cost. Those seeing The Terminator for the first time paid about $2.50 for a ticket, which adjusted for inflation is only $7.50. Seeing Gone with the Wind during its initial run would cost just 23 cents, or about $5 today. These days, good luck finding a theater that charges under $10 a ticket. Now, I could probably get a better idea of how much Terminator would have made by today's prices if I divided the box office by the average ticket price and then multiplied that number by the average cost today. But I don't like math that much, so we'll just go with the online inflation calculator. In 1984, The Terminator made $78.3 million at the box office, or nearly $229 million today. That might not seem like much, but the fact that its budget was $6.4 million makes it impressive. That's a difference of $71.5 million. Terminator 2 Judgment Day made $519 million, or over $1.1 billion today. It was the highest grossing film of 1991 and had a budget of $100 million. That's a difference of $419 million. 2003's Terminator Rise of the Machines brought in $433.4 million, or $714.5 million today. This was with a budget of $187.3 million, leaving a difference of $246.1 million. Then came the fourth film, Terminator Salvation, which was made in 2009 as an attempt to start a new trilogy. But it brought in only $371.4 million, which is just under $525.2 million today. With a budget of $200 million, that left $171.4 million. Not enough to justify a sequel. A fifth installment, Terminator Genesis, came out in 2015 and made $440.6 million, just shy of $564 million today. The budget for that film was smaller at $155 million, leaving the difference of $285.6 million. While not enough revenue to trigger a sequel, Arnold's name on the project seemed to generate more interest than the previous attempt. This may have given the studios hope for their sixth attempt, the third reboot of the franchise, Terminator Dark Fate, which was released in 2019 and brought in only $261.1 million worldwide, or $309 million today. With a budget of $185 million, that left just $76.1 million. And none of these numbers include marketing costs. But James Cameron wants to try for a seventh film? The question that James Cameron and other Hollywood filmmakers don't seem to be asking is why it failed. They just blame it on internet trolls and move on to their next reboot, remake, or sequel. The fact of the matter is, franchise fatigue is very real, and good films are bad. Fans can only take so much. Let's look at the Disney remakes and sequels. The early ones were a novelty and did really well in the box office, with two big successes coming out back-to-back in 2014 and 2015. Then in 2016, they came out with 4 in 1 year. 2017 had 2 more, followed by 4 in 2018. And 7 in 2019. The next 2 years had 1 each, probably influenced by the country shutting down, thus allowing 8 to come out in 2022. That's 27 movies based on previous content. And I wasn't even counting Star Wars or Marvel films. This bombardment has been taking its toll at the box office, with recent films getting lower numbers than early hits. It's reported that Little Mermaid won't even break even at its current trajectory and may lose an estimated $20 million. Think about it this way. My son is 4. He loves pizza. However, if I give it to him every day, he gets tired of it and stops eating pizza. Yes, this actually does happen with a 4-year-old. It's not that his tastes are too refined or that he has anything against it. He just doesn't want the same meal every day of the week. It's the same thing with films. Audiences want change, variety, something new, not the same dish with a different garnish. Now, I'm not saying that a franchise is a bad idea or that every sequel or remake is terrible. I've seen 3 in the last 8 years that were great. Granted, that's 3 out of a near 100, but I digress. The point is, there are ways to carry on with characters, plot lines, and even connected worlds without overdoing it. My favorite franchise has 66 films and a television series, all starring William Boyd. That would be Hopalong Cassidy, a Western hero who burst into the scene in 1935 and continued until his TV show ended in 1952. How did he manage it? First off, it helped that movies back then were only about an hour to an hour and a half long. Hoppies were being on the shorter side, which is one reason why they could make so many so quickly. When the studio funding got low, William Boyd gambled all he had to buy the films and move them to television. Their success on the small screen led to 2 seasons of new content, which was the very first Western TV series, predating even The Lone Ranger. Much like other westerns such as Rawhide, Hopalong Cassidy traveled around having adventures, fighting the wicked, and saving the innocent. The stories were simple, but engaging, and the characters likable. While Hoppy had many companions over the years, he would only have 1 or 2 predominantly featured in each film, so as not to weigh down the plot. See any contrasts with modern franchises yet? The first cinematic universe was created by Warner Brothers in the 1950s. Following the success of characters like Hopalong Cassidy and the Lone Ranger, the studio created several television westerns, starting in 1955 and continuing into the 60s. These shows, such as Maverick, would often cross paths. The Mavericks both showed up in Sugarfoot. Sugarfoot and Bronco showed up in Cheyenne, and so on. Did it happen a lot? No. Did they play major roles? Yes and no. Some episodes showed multiple heroes teaming up, while another time all you saw was James Garner's face on a water poster. The point is, anytime the audience might get the happy surprise of a cameo. But it was not something people made a big deal out of. The shows were filmed on the same lot, even sharing the same costumes, props, and extras. It was easy for them to send Jack Kelly to play poker on the Sugarfoot set while they're setting up for his next shot in Maverick. Also, they were able to easily maintain so many shows by having them play on rotation. For example, Jack Kelly and James Garner would alternate episodes of Maverick, with only a handful featuring both brothers. When Garner wanted to pursue his film career, other actors were brought in to extend the Maverick family and cover for his departure. The shows Cheyenne, Bronco, and Sugarfoot would share a weekly time slot, allowing the studio to produce less episodes of each series while still having a full year's worth of content. I'm not sure when it stopped, but some networks continued time slot sharing until at least the 70s. Now, do I think every series should include crossovers and every franchise should aim for 50 or more movies? Far from it. Hopalong Cassidy worked because it was essentially a TV Western from the start, with short format films and low budgets. Full length movies are not as easy to binge watch, especially when you have more than 3. Also, the more basic or over the top the plot, the harder it will be to continue the story across multiple films. Remember, in the 11th James Bond film, he fought Jaws in space. It only took 9 Fast and Furious movies to go that far. Animated movies have long been milked for all they're worth. I mean, as of last month, there were 10 sequels to The Swan Princess, 11 to Land Before Time, and that's not even counting Disney films. In summary, not everything has to be made into a franchise. Some things are great as they are, be it a single film, a 2-parter, or a trilogy. Once you start adding fractions to the title, it's safe to say that you've lost the plot. I only wish Hollywood writers would get the memo and return to making new, original content. Thanks for watching. What franchise do you enjoy? Which one are you tired of? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications, and I will catch up with you next time.